Let us talk about reality creation. I've been speaking a lot about the Mandela effect and how we are seemingly jumping realities as opposed to traveling in one reality that does not change. Because if we were traveling in one static reality, reality wouldn't be changing literally in front of our eyes. Things like movie recordings, song recordings, even the memories of certain foods, certain families, certain logos are shifting. Is it some sort of mass hallucination where we're all remembering the past wrongly? Or is realities shifting and every single reality has its own projected past and future from the present moment? Therefore, we shift into other realities which have seemingly different pasts. We don't really know the answer. There's really no way to know unless we put our trust into an authority figure and ask them to give us the answer. And a lot of us do that with science. We say, Mr. Science, tell me the answer. Tell me how to behave. Tell me how to think. Tell me how to feel about this certain phenomenon that is happening in front of my eyes. And then we trust that. Others of us decide to do our own experiments. We decide to use our own sense of observation, our own sense of experimentation, and we see what happens. We see if it's possible to shift reality. Has anyone out there had a moment where they feel like they created reality? Maybe they wrote themselves a check. Maybe they wrote down something in a notebook like I did when I was 19-ish. My hockey team was last place. We lost every single game except for one in the entire season. The next year, I wrote down in my notebook, we're going to win national champions. We're going to be the national champions, or we are the national champions of this year. And we won every single game, and we lost one the next year. It was almost a complete reversal of reality. I've been doing these things. I remember doing that in school, in psychology, where I was studying what they're teaching me in school, which is essentially just labeling mental illness. Guys, that's what our entire Western medical and even psychological system is based on. It's cutting the human being into parts and then determining if one of those parts are misbehaving and then diagnosing that part with a label and then a action, because once you have a diagnosis, now you can perform an action to fix that one broken part. We're not separate parts though. We're not machines. We're holistic within our body and even within the environment. So the moment we start separating ourselves into little aspects, we're already working with a broken system, literally broken. We have been dismembered. And so that's actually funny that I said dismembered, because today we're going to be working on memory. Memory. Because the experiment, right? Like, do we have an ability to shift reality? Do we have an ability to manifest? Do we have an ability to placebo effect? Do we have an ability to surf reality, otherwise known as reality transurfing? And if we do, how do we do that? What is the steering wheel? And I found a lot of foundation in working with our relationship to the past. Everything, if we actually are jumping realities, then that means that there's infinite realities, which is well known even in the scientific universe. I read a book it was before I moved to California, so it had to have been pre-2006, called The Hidden Universe, which is about holographic universe, holographic reality. As within, as without, as above, so below. Those words have been written thousands of years ago as well. And so how do we take the remote control that is out there of reality happening, and how can we bring that sense of awareness, sense of riding the wave within us. And if we are, this is ifs. So this is my thought process. I use if-then experiments, and I've done it my entire life. If it's possible for me to control reality, then if I write this down in my notebook, we should win nationals. If it's possible for me to bring in money just out of pure manifestation, then if I write out this check for $5,000, cashable within 2 weeks, when I need $5,000 to open up my new gym in a place that I couldn't afford, if I write down this check, then let's see if it happens. And there's a lot more that's I've found necessary. It's not just writing stuff down on paper. It is emotional. There's some emotional support that's necessary, and especially physical action. But the act of intention is merely a side effect of the origin of a place where that intention comes from. And that origin is stemming out into your thoughts, into your emotions, and into your actions. And so if you are grasping onto an intention that's floating out of you, otherwise known as a desire. So we're going to do some practices and exercises. I'm just going on a free thought form right now. Desire, that word etymologically means from the stars. So desire comes from the Latin root de sedere. De meaning from, sedere, the stars. So when you get a desire, this is how I think about intention, desire, and even that word manifestation. You get a feeling or thought, okay, that we would recognize as a desire. This is from the stars, okay? So what does the stars mean? So now your intention with the reality where you're more aligned to what you're desiring. So you're feeling, it's like a radio signal that comes into your body, and what you're feeling is tension, in tension with this other reality where you are experiencing what it is that you're desiring. So whether it's you have a new pen to write on paper with, you have a new hat, you have a new car, you have a new house, you have a new relationship, you have a new experience, you won the race, you offloaded the tasks that you don't need to do, you closed the business that's been draining you, whatever it is, you went on that vacation, you got the new job, you feel that tension. And we all know what this feels like. We've been taught it's a want. Want comes from Norse, vant. Vant means to be lacking. So when we get that desire and we go into lack, we immediately kind of like, instead of walking into the portal of the manifestation, we walk into the portal of lack. And that's where, like, with great power comes great responsibility. The further you climb up, the further you fall. Like, these idioms, is that the right word there? These things that you've heard, they make sense. Because once you gain this power, it's like having a kid that can't control a machine gun and shoots their own foot. It's another one, right? Like, once this power is presented to you, it's very easy to also go in the other spectrum, the other side. And so when you are presented with a desire, or this thing that we know of as desire, we can grab a hold of that intention and align as much of us as possible to it. That's where thoughts, emotions, and actions. What are the actions that you are doing in this other reality? A lot of it is different than, I would say, like not 100%, but it is impossible that you can be the same person that you are now in another reality. That's what I will say. You are the person you are now, harmonized within your reality now. If you are to be in another reality, you are a different person. You have different thoughts, emotions, and actions. You don't get to carry yourself into another reality because the self that you know now has harmonized this reality that you're in right now. Look around you right now. This is all of a result of what you've been thinking, acting, feeling. That's super basic knowledge, right? I could list out 100 things that support the reality that you're harmonized within. But for simplistic sakes, we're thinking about the head brain, the heart brain, and the body brain, the actions that you're doing in this reality. If you were to be in another reality, those would be different. So once you get that desire, you hold on to that intention and you follow it to that reality with your actions, with your thoughts, with your emotions, with your decisions. Decisions, decision, size, to cut off is what decision is. To cut off. You cut off the parts of you that are staying here in this reality. And that's actions, thoughts, emotions, relationships, experiences, activities. You cut those off. You detach from them and you move into another reality. All of this is setting up what we're going to do as an exercise. So stick around. It's something that we're all familiar with a twist. It's a vision board with a twist. We're going to do a memory board. But we're not really going to do a board. We can actually do a board, but that's going to take some time, or we can just write comments down. So, the other alternative to grasping onto that desire and following it to the reality is to fall into the portal of want, to be lacking. It's to recognize that reality is so far away from where you are now, and you are harmonizing with who you are now. So you guys can see there's two things. There's two things meaning choices. There's two choices that we have when we get a ping from another reality, another version of yourself. It's literally another version of yourself reaching to you. I almost said back to you, but this whole way of seeing reality, it's not a linear time way of seeing reality. You must have a gnosis that all realities are existing now. And this other reality is pinging you. Like, you're the one. You're coming here. And you can align to that, and you guys will magnetize, and then you will be that person. Or you recognize that ping, and you just go into lack. You just go into, why can't I have that? Why me? I'll never be there. And all you notice now is what? You notice the distance. You notice the distance. The distance is what becomes amplified. So you guys can see that when you get that ping of this reality, this desire, this from the stars, desidere, from this other reality, ping, you either have a choice to become this person, align everything to this person, which then does what? You guys have heard of like a warp hole or a wormhole? That's what I meant to say, a wormhole. So there's ways that you can travel through the universe, and how we think, our human mind, is that we have to travel through space. But there's a way to bend universe, like if you want to get from point A to point B, instead of traveling like this, which might be impossible, just like this distance we're talking about, instead of doing that, you bend reality so that you just pop through into that other reality. And you do that with your thoughts, emotions, and actions. If you do not recognize the distance the way that we're taught to recognize distance, and we recognize that, oh, that is me if I choose it to be, and you do that, you will pop into that reality. But if you choose to continue this framework that you must travel and that it's impossible to travel, all you notice is the distance. And the distance is going to do what? It's going to block you from this reality. And now you have this huge distance that you've built up in your own thoughts, emotions, and actions. That is what is becoming important to you, is the distance between where you are and where you're getting these messages. They're literally desires coming like, hey, door's open. What are you doing? Door's open. And you're just like, why me? I suck. I'm stupid. I'm going to mess it up if I'm there. I don't have what it takes. I don't know what it's going to be like. I'm scared. What about my best friend who I go drinking with? I'd really like them to come with me. All of this stuff. What about my memories of being abused when I was a kid? Like, there's no way broken me could possibly be this successful person. There's no way. I'm not ready to give up this identity of constantly talking about my problems to everyone. And there's no way that I could be this person and still get to constantly pity myself and wallow and cry away my tears to every single person. There's no way. And you just notice the distance. And you continue to harmonize with yourself now. And so I went on a complete tangent there that I wasn't planning on going on, just to explain the difference between desire and want. And if you guys are just tuning in, desire is from the stars. You actually recognize the signal coming from another reality. Want is lack, where you recognize that you have a lack. You recognize the distance from where you are to the reality. And that's going to determine where you sit. Do you sit current situation, or do you enter the cave that you fear most and go into the unknown without the attachments of security that you have harmonized around you now? All right, how can we work with that? So now the experiment is, a lot of us don't get to take with us our current relationship to the memories of our life. Because as I was saying, if the Mandela effect is happening, where we are popping into different realities that have different projected pasts and projected futures. So example of that, my dad drove a Ford. My first car was a Ford. My brother's first car was a Ford. We know what the Ford logo looks like. My dad worked for companies that produce products for Ford in Michigan. I worked for machine shops that produce products for Ford vehicles. I know what the Ford logo looks like. I go look at the Ford logo in this reality today. It doesn't look the same as it looked my entire childhood of being in Michigan by Detroit, where we worked. And Detroit's a very automotive city. Ford is very big there. Those of you guys who've been driving Fords for 30 years, 50 years, you're going to go look at the Ford logo and just be like, wait, what? When did it get a little curly Q on the bottom of the F? That's new. That was never there. You might look at Oscar Mayer Wiener and realize they're like, wait, it's Oscar Mayer Wiener now? You might look at Haas Avocados and be like, wait, it's Haas Avocados now? You might remember the song, We Are the Champions, the very last line, dun dun. And you might know that it says, of the world, because you, like me, won hockey tournaments 5 times a year, every single year, because I was always on the best hockey team since 3 years old to 23 years old, and sang that song with all of my hockey buddies every single tournament that ended. The song when we're carrying around the trophy at the end, the very last line of that song, dun dun, you wait, and then it's just like a thing that you do with all the guys on the team. You all say that, of the world. That of the world doesn't exist anymore. Then you watch Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and you're like, oh, I know this scene. Luke just gets his hand cut off, and then the famous line, the most famous line from that movie. Luke, I am your father, and you're waiting for it. And you're like, wow, that line doesn't exist the same way that it used to. It's different. Then you're watching Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. Oh, that line is different now? They're different words. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Different. In this reality, that movie was made completely different. And then your friends are going to tell you, oh no, it's whitewashing. They're changing things. They're changing. No, they're not. Go into your grandparents' house, find a VHS. These movies are different. They didn't just change it on YouTube. They didn't just change the entire family name like somehow on the internet for Oscar Mayer Wiener. Like, there's pictures in this reality of Oscar Mayer Wiener from 80 years ago or whenever they're 50 years ago. Because it was always Mayer in this reality. But the reality that we came from, it was Meyer. The Monopoly Man. How many of us? I'm 40, going on 42 years old, everybody. So if you're 20, reality might have always been the way that it is now, but I'm coming from a different reality. Or you might be 50 or 42, my same age, that you've been harmonized to this reality the whole time, and I've merged into you. But I for sure know that almost 40 years ago, in homes, all we had were board games. There was no video games. Nintendo came along eventually, but all there was board games. Monopoly was the one that everyone had. And the Monopoly Man always had a monocle. Not anymore. Not in this reality. So okay. So that's my experiment. Could I be completely delusional? Yes, I could. Has every single person I've been asking for the last 10 years, hey, fill in the blank from Darth Vader. Blank, I am your father. Has every single person said what goes in that space is Luke? Yes, every single person has said that. You can even, there's a video of the actor that played Darth Vader referencing that line, and he says, Luke, I am your father. In this reality, he doesn't say Luke. He says something else. So somebody says Bernstein Bears versus Berenstein Bears. Yeah, I never watched them, so I don't have any relationship to that. Also, the Star Wars C-3PO now apparently has a silver leg, which is weird to me. He was always just all gold. Curious George. Also, the monkey changed. Fruit of the Loom. My dad wore those underwear, and it's weird for me to know my dad's underwear, but I just remember my mom always folding all of our stuff. It was Fruit of the Loom white t-shirts and Fruit of the Loom whitey tighties. So I guess my brother and I also wore that brand as well. It was just like that was the brand that middle American household bought. And there was always a cornucopia behind the fruit. No cornucopia in this reality. Okay, so how do we use this? Is it just some weird thing, or can we actually use this aspect of reality to do experiments? One of the things that I've learned, what's up with Winnie the Pooh? Somebody said. We also relate other movies to the originals. For example, Toy Story with Buzz. They say, I'm your father. But that doesn't mean they say the same thing in Star Wars. See, what I think is even more proof is the arguments against it, right? So then when you look at like, okay, if I am crazy, then what would the explanation be? Like, if I am misremembering it, what would and you look at these examples of like, well, maybe it's just because you saw another movie and it bled into your memory of Star Wars, and it's like, no. There's no way. That's such a weak argument. There's people that present these like, well, what if this? yeah, I can consider that. It's just such a weak premise of validation that I am misremembering it and that every other single person on this reality is misremembering it. You guys remember JFK? Go look up that scene again. He's in a completely different car than you remember. It's a different car. It's a different. Just go look. If you don't know, like, what kind of, like, it was always, anyways, different car that he was set up in. So what I've learned, as I was saying 10 minutes ago, is that we don't get to keep our relationship to ourself in this new version of the self, this new reality of the self, especially memories. Because within this reality, it is very clear that the past happened differently, which is a projection of the now. Because in this reality, it is harmonized into physical material that has a projected past and future, which really doesn't exist. But if you imagine this reality snaking through all the probabilities of reality and into this moment where we are experiencing it, we are the creators of this reality. Why? Because physical reality doesn't exist. Vision doesn't exist. Color doesn't exist. Sounds do not exist without the receivers. We are the receivers. Sound doesn't exist unless there's an ear to hear it. Colors do not exist unless there's an eyeball to receive and translate the energetic signature into a color, into our brain that we make meaning of. Physical reality is all happening like that. We're taking this energetic signature and we're creating physical reality based on our human technology. With that knowledge, with the knowledge that we're creating this and that past and future and reality is fluid, then let's move through it. We can grant us the ability to move through it, to actually play with the fluid reality. We can play with the fluid reality many different ways. But today I'm going to talk about one of those ways, which is our memories. So all of us are very familiar with what I'm talking about in regards to making a vision board. Because a vision board gives us, instead of like that desidere, it's almost like we're creating that. Or maybe we got that desire and now we're creating more of what that looks like. What actions am I taking? You know, like we cut out a picture in the magazine. We're like, all right, I'm going to also work in the morning at coffee stores. So you like cut out a picture of somebody working at a cafe. You cut out a picture of what they're wearing. You put it on your vision board. Cut out a picture of the car, the house, the leisure activities that you're doing as this person. Maybe the responsibilities. You have like the person standing on stage talking to a whole bunch of people, and you create this vision board to make it easier for you to harmonize with this desidere, this vision from the stars. Remember what I said? You're here. So decision is to cut off. A lot of that has to do with your memories. So you don't get to keep your memories and go here. We get to re-relate. We get to remember. We get to remember in a way that this person would remember our memories. This person. How would this person remember being picked on in elementary school like I was? Would he remember it as, oh, poor me, no one's going to like me? I'll just use past tense, I was extremely afraid. I would say that my biggest fear has always been, I'm being careful on how I speak about this, has always been public speaking. Speaking in front of people. And even further than that would be speaking on camera. A lot of you guys speak to people and in front of people, but getting on a live like this is like so far elevated compared to being in an actual room where people can actually feel your essence and they have a little bit less judgmentalism, that's a word, of you. And my entire life I've been in front of audiences. Like literally my entire adult life I've been teaching in front of audiences and presenting myself, my heart, to people in a very vulnerable way for them to judge me would be how I was originally thinking, but that's not why I was doing it. I wasn't doing it to see if they were going to judge me good or bad, but that's how I used to think. That's what the fear came from. You're so consumed with what other people are going to think of you. Why? Because I got picked on in school. So it was always about what the other people thought about me. And so getting in front of people, it's always about like, well, what are they going to think about me? And that's where the fear comes from. It shuts you down as opposed to recognizing that you're there to support them. And that out of all the people in the room, if I can just help one person, that would make this whole thing worth it. And how can I best support that one person? And supporting that one person allows you to support the room. And maybe you eventually grow to the point where you can actually support the entire room as opposed to just focusing on one person. So I'm at the point now where I can speak in a way that can be digestible by everyone. But I started by like, how can I help just this one person? It gets you out of your own head, your own fear about what they're going to think about you, because you're not on stage. You're not at attention. You don't have their attention. You're not in front of an audience for them or for you. You're in front of an audience for them. And so that's a shift that I got to re-relate to. And I recognize that me getting picked on was not me getting picked on. Me getting picked on is me being able to be creative in my mind of how I present things. Because when there's a bunch of bullies around you, you're always trying to figure out, how can I have this person not pick me today? To kick or to push or to spit on or to set up to get in trouble. You're always thinking, how can I be their friend without making it look like I'm being their friend? And for whatever reason, I'm really good at that now because of those experiences that I went through. So a memory board is opposite of a vision board. We actually think back. That was just a quick example. It's not going to resonate with everyone, but you might have trauma in the past that you're thinking of. Does this person that's sending you messages, pinging you from the future, does that person also have the same relationship with your past now? And you guys can make a memory board the same way you would make a vision board, by cutting out things in a magazine or journaling about the things that happened to you in the past and reframing that into how they happened for you. And then eventually when you're advanced, not for you, but for this version of you, how has the things in the past allowed you to be this version of self? And that is my concept that I came up with based on this whole weird phenomenon that I've been noticing about reality. It's a tool that we can practice and utilize to decide to cut off the versions of ourself, the memories that we're holding now. We can cut some of those off, detach, have acceptance of them. We relate to them. We remember. We put ourselves back into place as this person. It allows us to span that gap, because the more of us that we hold on to here, the heavier it is to travel that gap. So someone's saying changing your Akashic, I'm sure, records for healing. The Akash is this expanse. It's this expanse where everything is. The Akashic records are this hall, this library. Remember, guys, or at least play with the experience that maybe the Akashic records change as you change. Just like physical reality will change and is changing as we all change. And nothing, even the concept of Akashic records, really exists in the framework that we in our physical bodies understand them or comprehend them to be. Nothing is as it seems to us. There's always more. We're here with the eyeballs, with the ears to hear the sound, with the body to experience this limited physical reality where we do not walk through walls because we've harmonized into a physical space where there are physical laws. We do not travel backwards through time in this physical reality. We do not travel through dense objects in this physical reality. We have accepted the nature of creation here. We've harmonized to it here. Then you ask, well, how come? What is proof of this? Well, if everything I've said so far isn't proof of it and you want like kindergarten proof of it, it's called dreams. It's called close your eyes and imagine something. That's your consciousness, which is not all tied to this physical reality. The consciousness gets inputted like a signal into our physical reality. We turn on our physical reality by being up. The brainwave frequencies are tuned to physical reality time. We're in harmony here and now. We go to sleep, brainwave frequencies shift down into even gamma, and now all of a sudden, which gamma is not during sleep, but it can happen during meditation, but now all of a sudden we're able to go into the realities of our past, the memories. We're able to tinker around with how they happen. We're able to go into the realities of the future. We're able to go into other realities. We're able to go into other experiences. We're able to pass through the walls. We're able to fly. We're able to do all that. A lot of us are passive observers of that. Why? Because we're passive observers of reality in waking life. Guys, if you're just living in waking life like reality is happening to you, and you're just a pawn in this random reality and you have to do the things that you have to do to survive in this reality, if you feel, you think, and you act, thoughts, emotions, actions, in this physical reality like you are not in control of it, like you are not all of it happening all together, like you are not the video game designer, the character, and the person playing the character. If you are operating just as the character and not as the person playing the character and not as the designer of the game that you're playing, if you're just the character in waking life, then in dream life, you're also just the character. You're just the character in dream life. And it's cool. I'm dreaming. It's the same sense of awareness that you have in everyday life. Nothing's going to change. You don't just get to also in your dreams have a lucid state where you have choice, where you have awareness, where you have control, where you have an ability to choose. You don't just get to do that in your dreams if in your waking life you've another acceptance of how reality operates. Because, as I said earlier, this is all an illusion too. The dream is another state of awareness. It's another set of rules for reality. We get access to the dream state. We get access to the imagination, image nation. Image refers to light, hue. Image is what we make out of light. Nation refers to state or place, state of being or place. Imagination, image nation, that's a place. It's real as this. And we can just operate as the imagination's just happening. It's just happening. I sometimes watch it. The dreams are just happening. Physical reality is just happening. We can be there, but when we start to actually trust that we have control of this control is a strong word, and I haven't found the word to actually I haven't found the word. Like, as a human being, which I am, I haven't found the word that God type figure would relate to physical reality as. It's almost like, I remember once the teachers in middle school, there was like a new principal that came on. And this new principal said they had a supply closet, okay, that was always low with the old principal. And this actually happened to me because a teacher was telling us in school. So when the new principal came, they said, the supply closet is always going to be full no matter what. And so the supply closet got filled with like chalk or markers. I don't remember what stage of it was with the whiteboard and chalk thing. Sticky notes, paper clips, clothesline hangers. Like, the supply closet is going to be full no matter what. And what happened? All the teachers went there and hoarded everything. They raped the closet basically and took it all and stocked in the room because nobody was used to a complete full supply closet. And then the principal filled it all up the next day. And then the teachers went and they took everything again, filled it all up the next day. It was emptied 3 times in 3 days. On the 4th day, it filled up, and everybody realized by then that, I will always have this power. There's no need for me to grab, to control. There's no need for me to put force into this, to force our way into reality. And control has a lot to do with like grasping on. Where if you know that you have the power, this godly power where the supply closet is always full, metaphorically speaking, in our life, then there's going to be no need to control. And so even though sometimes I say the word control, it's just because I haven't found the word. It's, for lack of a better words, as they say, control. We have an ability to control this reality, but it's not control. There's another word that basically means that reality is happening as we intend it to be. And it's happening in infinite different ways. And we are currently in this physical reality that we're in right now by our own choosing. We have harmonized ourselves here. And a lot of us are like, but why would we do that? People are getting raped and killed and there's war. And we're being poisoned. The food supply is poisoned and there's corporations. Why would we do that? Guys, do you not watch movies where there's war and rape? And that's entertaining to us. Do we not play video games where people are trying to kill us and we're trying to kill them? That is entertaining to us. Those things exist as proof that that is what our soul craves. We crave that. We do. And no, I do not play video games. I do not play sports. Sometimes I do. But anyways, it's besides the point. I used to. I completely am so distanced from this Team A, Team B. I do not watch movies of people killing each other. It doesn't excite me, but it does. I know it does because it did when I was a child. So that is who we are as humans. And if we came here to play a game, if this is all an illusion, if this is all a game that we're creating, do you think we're going to just... Would you guys play a video game where you sit on the beach all day? I mean, that's called meditation. But just in general, think about like humanity. Think about like us as a species. What kind of video games are we playing? What if this was a video game? What if we're zapping our consciousness into this physical place to have an experience so that we can learn lessons, so that we can learn what it is to relate to concepts of war, to concepts of somebody taking advantage of me, to concepts of me being supportive of a family, to concepts of challenge, to concepts of shame, anger, guilt, love, joy, all of that mixed into one where it's very confusing. That's why we're here. We're here to experience all of that. And there's a long line for us to come here to experience that, because this is a very exciting game. And again, game is my human mind's interpretation of how this is happening. Game also is not very accurate. But this is a formation that we are here now as the video game creator, as the character, and as the person playing the character. We're experiencing at all three of those levels. We're not just the character. That's a very definitive statement. We can be more than just the character if we choose. And you guys can run your own experiments on this. Your own experiments. Right now, think about... I can't really... We've got 10 minutes left. You guys can do your own experiments on manifestation, on placebo. The easiest way is to start with something simple. First, you got to recognize it. You have to recognize that, like, oh, here's another word that's awesome. It's called weird. What do we say when we do manifest something? When something just seems like, wow, is that a synchronicity? It's weird. I just thought of my mom and then she called me. Wow, that's weird. I needed this exact tool and you just showed up and gave it to me. We say that's weird, right? Weird. Weird is also from Norse. Weird spelled W-Y-R-D. Weird. We spell it W-I-E-R-D. Weird comes from the meaning fate or personal destiny. So when we actually recognize that we have manifested something, we say, that's so weird. We actually affirm that that's so fate. Like, I was able to sense my fate. I was sensing it. I thought I was wanting it. I was vaunting it. That's how I was programmed. I thought I was wanting this thing, but really I was sensing the ping of that new reality. It was closing in on me so fast that I didn't even get to experience. It just happened. It was happening. It's weird. Fate, what do we say fate is? In regards to everything that I'm saying. It's weird. It's weird when you think about something and then it happens. That's fate. That's you recognizing your fate. And so first, when we start recognizing our fate, we also then must take responsibility. Here's another experiential experiment. Is this an experiment? This is not an experiment. This is a recognition. This is an acceptance. That it's not just weird when the good things happen to you. It's also weird when you're driving and you're like thinking about policemen and looking out for policemen. And you're driving back on Sunday and you're like, man, this is like peak time for a ticket. And then you get a ticket. And instead of being angry and resisting that, you actually use that to affirm your creation abilities. And you actually start accepting the, quote, negative things that are happening in your life because you've created them. Or maybe you had some negative intentions for somebody else and you try to screw them over. And at the same time, you actually screwed yourself over. In the exact same way that you were intending to screw them over. Have you guys had that experience? If not, I mean, maybe none of us have, right? I mean, that's how I started recognizing this pattern. My pattern recognition started as a boy. Like, I'd knock over some garbage cans on my bike, kick tail, is that what it's called? Where you kick out the tail, knock over the garbage cans, and then boom, fall. And anytime I would do something with negative intentions, I would hurt myself. And look at, I was trying to knock over the garbage cans, but then I get knocked over right on my face. In the same way, it's like, oh, wow, I'm actually creating this. So of course, if this is my projected thought, emotion, and action, then reality, if I'm acting like a fool, like an idiot, as someone who's a destroyer, reality mirrors that. I will self-destruct in the same way that I'm destructing out, because this all out here is me. If I intend to rape and pillage out, I am raping and pillaging myself. And that's another, remember I was talking about in the beginning, if you guys have been here, I was talking about the portal, that there's power. When you gain this power, there's like two ways that you can go. And one of the things, when you start to recognize that you have this, for lack of a better words, control, and you immediately start to control and hoard, and what are you doing? You're taking from yourself. This is why the notion that ultimate power absolute power will destruct absolutely. That's what I wanted to say. Because if you're in a destructive mindset, you're destroying yourself. The way forward is always going to be collaboration, harmony, light. It's going to, that is what will prevail. It's the only way. You have somebody who's intending on taking. You can't. You cannot form enough relationships to take over reality. If you're screwing people over, you are going to screw over yourselves. There's always going to be con man conning the con man, and that's not going to hold. Those people exist for our evolution. Back to why are we in a reality where there's so much harm happening? They exist for us to play the game, to learn how to be even more creative, to make more impact with what our intentions are. But they seem super powerful. Guys, remember the gap. Don't recognize everything else. Do not, are you going to sit here and point fingers forever? Did you come here to just point at the gap? But this, and but that, and but this, and but that. And it looks like, if I use specifically, everybody's stupid. The corporations are poisoning us. If you're constantly talking about the gap, the distance between this reality and the one where it is our destiny, that's calling all of us to be first as individuals, we get to get rid of the recognition of the gap, because spanning that gap is impossible. Look at what's happening. And they're feeding us awareness of that gap. They're feeding it to us. They're letting us know how far away we are from harmony within this, from harmony and recognition of awareness of all selves within reality that we are creating this. They're feeding us. It's so easy to take over an entire world. You just need a few people that are in control of the media, that are in control of the food supply, that are in control of the universities, that are in control of the entertainment. Those few people all collaborating together, all they're concerned with is what? Manipulating your mind, your emotions, and your actions. That's all they're concerned with. That is what the programming is. Everything else is just a story that they're saying to provoke a thought, an emotion, or an action. And with that power, they have a stronghold on an entire civilization of humanoids. And it's been done many times before. And here we are. And we get to go through this as a civilization, as a family, as a unit. We get to go through it. So it'd be like if my whole body was fighting itself, because even them, they're part of me. And so we get to recognize our collaboration, our togetherness, and overcome this obstacle. It's here for us so that we can be a greater version of ourselves. If this wasn't happening, we would be okay as individuals. That's not how ascension works. Ascension needs us to come together. There needs to be, in this version of reality, apparently, because it's happening, we are blessed to have a catalyst to bring us together out of necessity. Just like all great inventions, all great steps forward come from a state of desperation. There's no greater motivator than the motivator of desperation. And that's where we're at right now. And so our backs are up against the wall. We've got one choice. It's to come together. It's to choose the greatest version of ourselves in every single moment of life. It's to choose this as opposed to this where we are. And that choice, that trust is a challenge, but that's going to allow us to ascend as a greater being so that we have value within the cosmos. I really enjoyed this last hour of me rambling, and thank you guys all for being here and commenting, and please join me back here next, basically however many days times 24 hours, which time is also an illusion and how we experience it, which is an amazing topic as well, and how we can actually extend our perception of time. Did you guys know that as humans, we really live half of our perceivable life in our early 20s? So by the time we're in our early 20s, scientifically speaking and perceptually speaking, we have lived half of our life. The second half of our life happens over a longer distance. So from 0 to 22 years old, it's going to feel like we've already exceeded half of our life. And then from 22 to 80 years old, it's going to feel like the same amount of time from 1 to 22. From 22 to 85, or however long we're going to feel, it feels like we're moving faster through that. And that's defined by novelty. When we think back of the last week and we're like, it's been a week already? Why do you think that is? Just like I was talking about the realities, it's because who you were a week ago compared to who you are today isn't far. It's the same person. You're doing the same exact things. You're going through the same motions. You're thinking the exact same thing. So there's no perception of time there. There's no novelty. There's nothing different that you did. You didn't learn anything. There was no new experiences, new relationships. The more of those that go in there, the larger our perception of time. That's an amazing conversation as well that I just had in 2 minutes. So I will leave you guys with that. Go have some novel experiences today. Do some experiments. See if you can create your desires. Maybe you're one step further. Maybe you create it. I was on a podcast. One more last story to validate myself. I was on a podcast speaking to an audience, a very, very big audience. I'll just tell you, I was on the CrossFit podcast after I already stopped. I closed my gym. I wasn't even CrossFit, so I got invited on the CrossFit podcast with long hair, not working out anymore. This weirdo dude that, on the other side of the CrossFit world. And I got invited onto the CrossFit podcast, and I was explaining this concept. The host, Savan, he sent me a text message the next day of somebody sending him a message that say, I think my name was Ronnie then. Or Ravi, I don't know. But he was like, hey, I thought that Ronnie dude was crazy. I didn't believe anything. But I decided to experiment. So I was on my way to go buy a boat. And I thought to myself, it would be pretty cool if I just got this boat for free. He had a recognition. He had a desire. And he just held it without attachment to it, without force. He held it with recognition that it's a possible reality. He let it go. He even forgot about it. And he said he was about to buy it from this woman. And he said the woman was just like, you know what? What I really want is somebody just to get rid of this. So you can have it for free. So this guy on the way, just after listening to me, had a thought based on what I was saying, like maybe I can just get this boat that I'm going to buy for free. And it happened. So that's what I mean. Be open. These desires, instead of just writing them off like, oh, there's no way that's going to happen, recognizing the distance, attached attach, intend, build tension with your thoughts, emotions, and actions with the reality, the self of your desires. You might have to cut off the things that you know. You might have to cut off some of the science that you were taught, some of the relationships that you have, but just practice. You can start small with like front row parking, or you can, if something just randomly comes into your life, like, oh, let's just see if this happens. Without kind of just seeing, there needs to be a bit of trust in there. Anyways, everybody, I enjoyed this. Take care.